Chapter 1 Two Drunks. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The drunken melody reverberated through the desolate road as the man's slurred voice carried its tune. With an empty glass bottle swaying in his hand, he staggered aimlessly, mirroring the uncertainty in his song. "That I'm going from here to there," he belted out, his footsteps as indecisive as his destination. As he approached a water puddle, his unsteady gait persisted, "That I don't know as to where I'm going." Undeterred, he continued to sing with gusto, drawing closer to the water's edge. But his balance betrayed him, and he veered toward the roadside, yet miraculously managed to stay on his feet. "That I'm going from here to there," he sang on. As his foot prepared to touch the watery surface, his stability faltered once more, and he tumbled sideways, landing on his rear, yet miraculously keeping the glass bottle intact. Envied observing the bottle's unscathed state, he wove it into his improvised song. "Oh my, I've slipped," he confessed, looking up at the sky and singing the next line, "What have you done?" It seemed as though he sought an answer from the god, questioning the events that unfolded. As if in response to his inquiry, a radiant light materialized in the dark expanse of the sky, resembling an answer from the divine. Converging into a single brilliant point directly above the man, it descended with purpose, descending upon him. As the radiant beam made contact with the man's body, an intense jolt coursed through him, causing wisps of smoke to billow out. His hair stood on end, transforming into upright spikes. It soon became apparent that this ethereal illumination was not a mere light but a divine thunderbolt unleashed by the wrath of a god. Unfortunately, the unsuspecting man, who had been merrily reveling in his tipsy night, had unwittingly crossed paths with this catastrophic force, resulting in the abrupt and tragic end of his life. In an aged, dilapidated shop, a slumbering boy could be found, his head resting upon the grime-covered workbench while his derriere occupied a worn wooden chair. The surrounding area bore witness to the remnants of his indulgence, an assortment of empty alcohol bottles. It was evident that the boy's dreamlike countenance was a consequence of his intoxicating reverie. The flickering glow of a solitary, flickering bulb cast eerie shadows across the worn-out shelves adorned with forgotten curiosities and abandoned tools. The air was heavy with the scent of aged wood and forgotten dreams, creating an atmosphere of quiet melancholy. Outside, the city's nocturnal symphony filled the air, punctuated by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional hushed conversation. The dim glow of streetlights filtered through the dusty window, casting a hazy illumination upon the slumbering boy and the forgotten shop that housed him. Within the boy's restless slumber, his dreams weaved a tapestry of fragmented images and emotions. Perhaps he found himself wandering through a labyrinthine cityscape of towering dreams and whispered secrets, or traversing ethereal realms where time and space merged in harmonious chaos. As the night wore on, the shop maintained its vigil, preserving the boy's tranquil repose amid the worn-out surroundings. Shadows danced upon the cracked walls, seeming to whisper tales of forgotten ambitions and untold stories. Boom! In an instant, a thunderbolt crackled through the sky, descending with precision upon the unsuspecting boy, jolting him awake from his slumber. Awe escaped the boy's lips as the electrifying surge coursed through his body, transforming his once dormant eyes into radiant orbs of yellow light. His hair, now standing on end, formed sharp, upright spikes, a testament to the electric energy that had surged through him. The thunder's power dissipated as swiftly as it had arrived, leaving behind a wispy trail of smoke that gently wafted from the boy's body. Startled and now fully alert, the once intoxicated teenager scanned the surroundings, expecting to witness the aftermath of the thunder's impact. Yet, to his astonishment, the shop remained untouched, showing no signs of the dramatic thunderbolt that had struck him directly. "Where the heck am I?" the boy exclaimed, his eyes widening in shock as he scanned his unfamiliar surroundings. He glanced at the empty alcohol bottle in his hand, squinting to read the label. To his surprise, he couldn't recognize the brand, which was quite unusual for him since he prided himself on his extensive knowledge of every liquor brand out there. His friends even nicknamed him Liquor Larry because of it. "Did I black out again?" he muttered to himself, realizing with a sinking feeling that he must have once again surpassed his alcohol tolerance. The unfamiliar place he found himself in and the throbbing headache pounding in his head served as undeniable proof of his overindulgence. Welcome to Omnistore. Host found, store found, binding with host, binding complete. Congratulations, you're now the owner of the Omnistore. What the heck, am I still drunk? Did someone spike my drink again? The boy blurted out, startled by the mechanical voice he heard and the words floating in front of his eyes. However, just as he uttered those words, a mechanical voice resonated in his mind. I'm not an illusion, and yes, you're still intoxicated, and soon you're going to fall unconscious again. Erwin's eyes widened in shock at the response from the mechanical voice, and his vision started to blur. Wait, what are you talking about? He stammered, still trying to comprehend the bizarre situation unfolding before him. Ignoring Erwin's confusion, the voice continued with a sense of urgency. Before that, host, choose one of these cultivation techniques as a gift from the system. Choose quickly, or there will be no gift. Erwin felt a sense of pressure as the voice counted down. You only have 10 seconds. 0, 1. Please, I don't understand what's happening, Erwin pleaded, his frustration and unease growing. The voice persisted, disregarding his pleas. Host, choose, or the gift will vanish. 4, 5. Erwin's gaze fixated on the floating screen in front of him, which displayed an overwhelming list of thousands of so-called cultivation techniques. As his vision began to blur once again, he instinctively reached out to touch one of the names on the screen. 7, 8. The mechanical voice continued to count down in the background. 9. Just as the voice declared the remaining seconds, Erwin's finger made contact with the screen. Congratulations. The host has chosen D. Upon hearing the word, congratulations, Erwin's vision darkened, and he collapsed unconscious onto the table. Chapter 2 Gigolo's Death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Gigolo's Death, coming to you live from Siru Street. This is MBP News, and we have an unfolding situation to report. Late last night, at approximately 3 o'clock a.m., an explosive-like sound reverberated through this area, disrupting the sleep of residents and instilling fear in their hearts. The news anchor, a striking figure, delivered the report with poise, standing before the camera amidst a bustling scene. In the background, the blaring horns of ambulances and police vehicles disturbed the serenity of the beautiful morning light. Two individuals wearing protective suits, presumably forensic experts, held a stretcher carrying a charred body. The news anchor, who had been reporting earlier, placed a hand on her ear, fitted with an earpiece, and looked visibly surprised. Her voice filled with urgency as she continued, "We have just received an update from our headquarters regarding the sole fatality in this unexpected incident. The victim of this tragic event is none other than Norman, the famous gigolo of Night Palace. My colleague, who was set to cover an event today at Night Place, obtained this information firsthand from Countess Maria, who held a special place for Norman in her heart. Our focus this morning is on this breaking news," the female news reporter continued amidst the chaotic scene, while Norman's charred body lay alone in the ambulance. Meanwhile, in a different world, a young boy lay fast asleep with his head on the table. The sun, seemingly displeased with the boy's carefree slumber, cast its rays directly onto his face. Annoyed by the intrusion, the boy shifted his head in another direction, unwilling to be roused from his deep sleep. ZZZR, however, an additional source disturbed his sleep, filling the room with a buzzing sound. The boy furrowed his brows in annoyance, his eyes still closed. He searched his surroundings and discovered a glass-like slab. With closed eyes, he slid his finger across it and placed it near his ear. "Hello," he mumbled in his drowsy voice, which carried a hint of depth. "Hey, pissed up Pratt, where are you?" a voice laced with disdain emanated from the slab. The boy, referred to as the pissed up Pratt by the irritating female voice, recognized it as a voice he heard frequently but couldn't recall its owner. With his eyes still closed, he inquired, "Who is this?" "What do you mean?" who is this? Wake up, come home, or eat shit for breakfast if you prefer, the voice behind the transparent slab retorted before falling silent. The boy, still not fully awakened, gazed at the half-opened glass slab with a mixture of confusion and surprise. As his eyes darted around the room, he became increasingly shocked. As he recollected the fragmented memories from the night before he lost consciousness, his gaze fell upon the entrance of the shop. Once old and damp, it now bore a different appearance. While not transformed into a luxurious space, it had undergone improvements compared to its previously dilapidated state. The shop took on a rectangular shape, with one longer side adorned with wooden shelves intricately patterned. Rows of empty glass jars lined these shelves. On the opposite side, there was another wooden shelf, also displaying empty jars. Towards the beginning of the counter, where the boy had been sleeping, there stood a peculiar machine. Confusion etched across his face, he murmured to himself, "Whose shop is this?" In response to his question, a mechanical voice resonated in his mind. "The Omnistore belongs to you, host." If the teenager wasn't fully awake before, he certainly was now. The memory of this mechanical voice also came rushing back to him, stirring a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice trembling with fear. "Host, I am the Omnistore System. The purpose of Omnistore for the host is to achieve ultimate merchant status within the realm of Omnistore. This entails expanding your store's influence, attaining legendary status, and becoming the one who controls the flow of wealth in the world." As the boy listened to the mechanical voice, he detected a hint of emotion in its delivery, making it sound somewhat human. However, confusion still clouded his mind as he sought clarification. "So, you mean you want me to become rich?" "Yes, the host can say it that way." The boy was now not scared but still confused by the system's answer and looked around and asked again. "Where am I?" "You're in Omnistore, host." The confusion on the boy's face remained, while the mechanical voice seemed to perceive it despite its intangible presence within his mind. "This should clarify your confusion, host." As the voice spoke those words, the boy's brain began to heat up, and a rapid succession of images started to play like a montage in his mind. It was as if he was witnessing someone's life unfold before his eyes, and within those images, the same old shop he had seen the night before made an appearance. The pictures flickered at a staggering rate, too fast for him to fully comprehend or remember under normal circumstances. Yet, each fleeting image seemed to be etched permanently in his mind. What are these? Are these memories? Whose memories are these? The boy pondered silently within his mind, first with confusion and then with a sense of astonishment. The images that played in his mind belonged to someone else, and yet, there was an inexplicable feeling of familiarity, as if these memories somehow belonged to him. However, he had no recollection of performing the actions or recognizing any individuals within those vivid recollections. This phenomenon continued for several more minutes, and within that time, the boy gained further insights into the nature of this so-called system from the memories ingrained within him. The memories of the teenager held knowledge about a web novel and the concept of a system. It was through these recollections that he also came to a startling realization. "I died." The boy's voice quivered with shock. Chapter 3 Cultivation Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Cultivation Technique. No, host, you have not. Norman heard the resolute voice in his mind, and as he absorbed the information, he discovered the concept of transmigration. It meant that the once famous gigolo of the nightlife had passed away and now found himself inhabiting the body of an alcoholic teenager. Is this some kind of prank? Norman questioned himself, but he quickly realized that the voice echoing in his head and the vivid memories couldn't be the work of a mere prankster. He fell silent, contemplating the situation for some time, before a sad smile crept across his face. "Hiya," he let out a long sigh, his expression reflecting a mix of nostalgia and acceptance. "I will miss you, ladies, but now that I have passed away in your world, it can't be helped. It seems that God has chosen to transport me to this new world to fulfill the desires of this world's ladies. So, goodbye, my dear ladies. I hope we meet once again in some nice place, hopefully heaven. Norman, having accepted his fate in his previous world, made a firm decision to leave behind everything associated with that life. While he didn't have much to hold on to in that world, there were women who loved him, even though his feelings for them were not reciprocated. He couldn't help but feel a tinge of sadness, leaving them behind and wishing he could take them with him. From a young age, Norman had been handsome but orphaned, which led him to endure difficult times. As he grew older and even more handsome, one day a noble lady noticed him while he was working and offered him money in exchange for a night of passion. He accepted the offer, and that marked the beginning of his journey as a gigolo. He learned the art of captivating women's hearts and eventually found himself recruited by one of the finest brothels in his world, the Night Palace. He enjoyed his life there, indulging in encounters with beautiful women who were willing to pay for his company. Many men would have envied his position. However, over time, he grew dissatisfied. While he enjoyed the physical aspects of his lifestyle, he yearned for a sense of control and agency. In that world, he felt that his life was governed by money, poverty, alcohol, and the desires of various women. As thoughts of his previous world's memories resurfaced in his mind, Norman shook his head, rising from his chair with a determined expression. I will live life on my own terms in this world. No one will dictate how I should live from now on. However, his determination was soon interrupted by the mechanical voice once again. Now, host, you have a clear understanding of your situation. The system will present you with your first quest. Quest. First sales target. Earn 500 Omni tokens. Reward. 1 basic material knowledge book. Duration. 30 days. Punishment. Loss of freedom. Norman gazed at the quest panel, frustration evident in his voice as he exclaimed, I am the owner. Why am I being compelled to undertake these tasks? Shouldn't I have the authority to delegate them to someone else? In this world, the system designates you as the owner in name only. You are bound as a servant to the system, and failure to complete this quest would reinforce your position as a slave. Norman's mouth opened in astonishment, but no words emerged. He stammered, struggling to articulate his thoughts. You're a cheater. A thug. This isn't right. I have my rights. I'll take you to court. Where is your manager? Norman, overwhelmed by shock, began to act like Kevin, channeling his own frustration. The system didn't respond to his Kevin-like tantrums, making Norman, struggling to control his frustration and embarrassment, sought clarification by asking, what exactly are these Omni tokens? Omni tokens serve as the currency within the Omnistore host. Each Omni token holds a value equivalent to 100 units of the currency used in the world where the host currently resides. Upon hearing the system's response, Erwin swiftly calculated the situation in his mind. Frustration and anger welled up within him as he exclaimed, 50,000 worth of things. Just look around. There aren't even 5,000 units worth of merchandise in this shop. How am I supposed to make 50,000 in just 1 month? Norman's troubling discovery from his predecessor's memories revealed that this store was struggling and on the verge of closure. As a result, the young teenage owner resorted to medication to alleviate the pain of poverty that his father had inflicted upon the entire family, a pain that eventually led to his father's untimely demise. The young kid's name was Kevin, and his resentment towards his father ran deep. It wasn't solely due to their poor state, but rather because his father was an alcoholic who would subject them to physical abuse while under the influence. Norman couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment, as he witnessed Kevin following in his father's footsteps, drowning his sorrows in alcohol and heading toward his own death. Norman delved once more into Kevin's memories, hoping to find a way to acquire valuable items for sale. However, his search proved fruitless in terms of material possessions. Yet, within the vast expanse of memories, he stumbled upon a particular recollection that filled him with excitement. He discovered that the inhabitants of this world possessed extraordinary abilities known as superpowers, which could be attained through a process called cultivation. In a fleeting moment of consciousness before succumbing to unconsciousness once again, Norman recalled that the system had bestowed upon him a gift to select any cultivation technique. A wide grin stretched across his face as he realized he now possessed a cultivation technique. It was a fortuitous turn of events, for Kevin's father had been a cultivator himself, with a technique he intended to pass down to Kevin. However, consumed by his thirst for power, he had lost the technique with his cultivation, plunging into a life of drunkenness. Had Kevin's father not lost the technique, Kevin would have become a formidable cultivator. Although the cultivation technique his father possessed was of earth mid-rank just a bit higher from lowest, it still far surpassed his own ordinary capabilities. With an enthusiastic smile, Norman eagerly inquired, "System, where can I view my cultivation technique?" Chapter 4 Mr. Ordinary, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Mr. Ordinary, host, you can see it in your status. Norman was about to say something again when a panel opened in front of him with his kid's name on it. Status name: Kevin Morrison Post. Store owner, store level. Street shop realm. None STG. 6 AGL. 5 Dix. 4 CHM. 7 Int. 6 attribute points. 0 cultivation technique. Essence harmonization LV0, divine, skills. None. Kevin, now known as Norman, looked at his status and found himself puzzled by the mention of the cultivation technique called essence harmonization and the term divine in brackets. Curiosity sparked within him, and he turned to the system, seeking clarification. System, could you please explain what this cultivation technique, essence harmonization, entails? And what does the term divine mean? Essence harmonization is a divine-ranked dual cultivation technique that harnesses the inherent power of yin and yang energies, derived from the male and female essences respectively. Through this practice, the balance and synergy between these fundamental forces are achieved, leading to a harmonious union of spiritual and physical energies. It is a method that embraces the inherent duality of existence, recognizing the complementary nature of opposites and the transformative potential that arises from their interplay. Does the host want to use this? Please answer in yes or no. Kevin's confusion remained somewhat unresolved, but amidst the jumble of information, he managed to catch certain phrases that sparked a glimmer of understanding. So, dual cultivation implies a connection between sex and the divine, Kevin pondered, his mind weaving together fragments of comprehension. He surmised that such cultivation practices might be categorized similarly to earthly and mortal ranks, indicative of different levels of attainment. Kevin's excitement grew exponentially as he realized the immense potential held by divine ranked cultivation techniques. He understood that even earth-ranked practices could elevate a person to superhuman status, and thus, the possibilities presented by a divine rank were truly awe-inspiring. However, there was one significant obstacle. Kevin, or rather Norman, the consciousness inhabiting his body, harbored a deep aversion to engaging in sexual activities. Having fulfilled that desire in his previous life, Norman found no appeal in pursuing it further. However, Kevin was faced with a predicament. He understood that to make progress in the cultivation technique, it required engaging in sexual activities to harness the vital energy necessary for his practice. Deep in contemplation, Kevin turned to the system, seeking a solution to his predicament. "Hey, system, would it be possible to change this technique? Even lower rank would be fine," he inquired, hoping for a more suitable alternative. The host can choose whether to learn the technique or not. It's entirely up to you. However, the system will not provide any other technique in exchange. O.org. Kevin pondered the system's response, realizing that his path forward would require careful consideration and personal choices. He understood that while the divine-ranked technique held immense advantages, it might not align with his current circumstances and desires. The decision of whether to embrace the technique as it was or seek alternative paths lay solely in his hands. But this world was not like his previous one. In this new world, where dangers lurked not only among ordinary people but also among superhumans and other extraordinary beings, Kevin recognized that he needed to adapt his approach. Considering the circumstances and the potential advantages the technique offered, he made a resolute decision to learn the essence harmonization technique provided by the system. System, I am ready to learn the essence harmonization technique, Kevin declared with determination. The system acknowledged his request and sought confirmation, stating, please confirm if the host wishes to learn essence harmonization. Yes or no? Kevin took a deep breath, closing his eyes, and affirmed his choice. Yes. As he confirmed his decision, a flood of information began etching itself into Kevin's mind. Within a matter of minutes, the process of assimilating the knowledge of the technique was complete. When Kevin opened his eyes, he took a moment to absorb the newfound understanding of the cultivation technique. However, he realized that only a portion of it was currently comprehensible to him, while the rest remained veiled. He understood that as he progressed further along his cultivation journey, the remaining aspects of the technique would gradually unfold before him, revealing their secrets in due time. Kevin let out a weary sigh, feeling the burden of engaging in sexual activities once more. Ugh, here we go again. It's like a never-ending workout routine, he grumbled, dreading the prospect of gathering energy through intimate encounters. The thought of men discovering his aversion to sex sent a shiver down his spine. After all, he didn't want to end up being chased by an angry mob of offended guys. But as Kevin shifted his focus to his own body, his hand stumbled upon a surprising revelation. Whoa, hold up. This guy has quite the generational treasure down here, he exclaimed, chuckling at the sheer size and weight of his newfound asset. It seemed luck was on his side in that department. Curiosity piqued, Kevin grabbed a glass slab from the nearby table, repurposing it as a makeshift mirror. With a mischievous grin, he peered at his reflection and couldn't help but comment, well, look at Mr. Ordinary over here. He noted his unremarkable black hair, black eyes, and a face that could blend into a crowd without a second glance. The only thing that stood out was his fair skin, which made him look like a vampire in dire need of some sunlight. Standing at a modest height of around 5 feet and a handful of inches, he quipped, not exactly a towering presence, am I? I guess my dream of joining the NBA is out the window. He playfully flexed his lean physique, jokingly adding, but hey, at least I've got this amazing chiseled sense of humor, right? Kevin paused for a moment, contemplating his situation. Well, they say money can make anyone attractive. Guess I'll just have to work on that part, too. Step aside, Bill Gates, here comes Kevin, the new heartthrob. Chapter 5 Soft Spot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Soft Spot. Kevin locked up the shop for the day, feeling a sense of futility in staying open any longer. After all, what could he possibly sell? Empty jars and half-drained bottles of alcohol. He had emptied a fair share of them himself the previous night. With a shrug, he made up his mind to head home and reunite with his new family. Ah, the joys of being part of an ugly duckling family, Kevin thought wryly. As he anticipated meeting his mom and older sister, whom he had conversed with earlier on the glass slab, he couldn't help but feel a tinge of envy. Lucky for them, they didn't inherit the Mr. Ordinary genes from our dear old dad, he mused. His mom and sister were undeniably beautiful, blessed with the genetic lottery from their stunning mother. Meanwhile, poor Kevin seemed to have inherited more of his father's features. He joked to himself, guess I got the short end of the genetic stick. It was the early hours of the morning, and the streets were still relatively quiet with few people in sight. However, for the avian inhabitants, it was a different story. The air resonated with the melodious songs of birds as they fluttered from tree to tree, creating a symphony of love and life. Kevin pondered the reasons behind this avian morning chorus, recalling something he had read about birds being more active and vocal during these early hours. It seemed that the tranquility of the morning allowed their songs to carry farther than at other times of the day. Chuckling to himself, Kevin thought, well, at least this is something familiar from my own world. He marveled at the diversity of bird species he had never encountered before. There were majestic, larger birds with wingspans reaching half his body's length, and he spotted smaller, colorful birds that flitted about like flashes of paint. Some were as tiny as his hands, yet their presence and vibrant plumage added a touch of enchantment to the morning scene. Kevin found solace in this shared connection with nature, appreciating the beauty of these feathered creatures as they added their own unique melody to the tapestry of the early morning hours. As Kevin embraced the tranquility of the early morning, he arrived at his destination, a modest two-story house. The building's exterior showcased numerous cracks, and the once vibrant colors had faded, leaving a somber appearance. A single window adorned each floor, adding a touch of symmetry to the structure. Kevin couldn't help but surmise that the interior would likely mirror the worn-down exterior. Though he had hoped for a more spacious abode, his memories reminded him that this small building contained only 2 rooms. Bracing himself, Kevin surveyed the surroundings and noticed a similar pattern among the neighboring houses. While some were slightly larger, the overall impression was that they too belonged to families of limited means. A mixture of anticipation and resignation filled his heart as he accepted this new reality. With a heavy sigh, Kevin steeled himself and crossed the threshold of his new home. However, his entrance was met with an annoyed voice calling out to him. "Where were you? Ugh! You reek of alcohol." The source of the voice was none other than his older sister, Rhea. She stood before him, wearing a tight pair of sports shorts that accentuated her well-toned thighs, while a sports bra held her ample bosom in place. Beads of sweat adorned her chiseled abs and neck, a testament to her recent physical exertion. Despite her stunning appearance, Rhea's facial expression twisted into one of disgust as she caught a whiff of Kevin's alcohol-infused scent. "Kevin!" A concerned voice called out from within the house, prompting a woman with a curvaceous figure to rush toward him. Her silver eyes reflected worry as she inspected Kevin's body, but the scent of alcohol caused her to distance herself, placing a hand on her nose. "Are you okay? Where were you?" she asked, her concern evident. Kevin couldn't help but chuckle at their reactions. "I'm all right, Mom, don't worry," he reassured her, gazing into his mother's eyes, which were only partially visible behind her veiled face. Ever since the day she got married, Kevin's father had insisted that his mother wear the veil, a tradition upheld by all the women in their household, including his aunts and cousins, except for his sister Rhea. His mother, dressed in a long skirt and loose-fitting T-shirt, concealed her curvaceous figure beneath the modest attire. Yet, the natural curves of her bosom and ample bottom hinted at the beauty hidden beneath the loose fabric, leaving much to the imagination. "Mom, why are you worried about this drunken mess?" Instead of scolding him, Rhea questioned, her anger evident as her beautiful face returned to its original form. Kevin couldn't help but notice the resemblance between his sister and their mother, as he saw flashes of his mother's younger self in Rhea. With the same colored eyes and black hair as their mother, Rhea possessed a cute yet sharp nose and soft rosy cheeks that added to her overall charm. Kevin couldn't help but chuckle at Rhea's question, finding her straightforwardness amusing. "Well, sis, I guess Mom just has a soft spot for me," he replied with a playful grin, his eyes twinkling mischievously. Their mother, though taken aback by Rhea's comment, couldn't help but let out a small laugh. "It's true, Rhea. No matter what trouble this boy gets himself into, he always manages to find his way back home," she said, affectionately ruffling Kevin's hair. Rhea rolled her eyes, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Well, just make sure you clean up before you step foot in the house, Mr. Party Animal," she quipped, playfully pushing Kevin towards the bathroom. All right, I'll go freshen up," Kevin said, feigning a look of mock offense. But don't worry, Ria, I'll make sure to save some of my charm for you too. Ria couldn't help but laugh at her brother's playful banter. Oh, how lucky I am, she retorted sarcastically, her eyes twinkling with amusement. As Kevin headed towards the bathroom, he couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth and belonging in his new home. Chapter 6 Pen to Sell. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Pen to Sell. Kevin sat with his family, enjoying their simple morning breakfast of plain bread filled with boiled potato and accompanied by a humble serving of curd. As they ate together, he noticed his sister, Ria, engrossed in sliding her fingers across the glass slab they all used as a smartphone. Although it was an outdated model, they couldn't afford the more advanced holographic screens that had become popular in their world. Meanwhile, his mother appeared distracted, her gaze fixed on something beyond the table. Kevin observed her absent-mindedly crumbling the torn piece of bread into smaller fragments, a telltale sign that her mind was preoccupied. "Mother, what happened?" Kevin inquired, his curiosity piqued as he savored a particularly delightful bite of bread. With a soft sigh, Maria snapped out of her reverie, refocusing her eyes on her son. Though a hint of sadness lingered in the corners of her eyes, she mustered a smile and deflected Kevin's question. "Oh, nothing. How is the food?" "It's really tasty," Kevin replied, his mouth still full as he savored another piece of curd-dipped bread. Encouraged by his positive response, Maria placed another plain bread on his plate. Kevin didn't hesitate to accept it, appreciating the generosity of his mother's gesture. Though they were not affluent, they managed to afford 3 meals a day, and they made sure to eat their fill. Maria appeared slightly troubled as she glanced at Kevin and spoke with a touch of concern. "Son, your uncle visited us again yesterday." Continuing to eat, Kevin sifted through his memories of his uncle. The man was his father's younger brother and lived just a few blocks away from their home. In a way better house than this one and in a richer district. After his father's passing, his uncle had been instrumental in helping them secure this house, as their previous one had been lost due to his father's drinking habits. "Did he want me to work in the mine?" Kevin asked, already aware of the reason behind his uncle's frequent visits. His uncle was employed in the mines, a stark contrast to his father's role as a cultivator before succumbing to alcoholism. His father had never shared his cultivation techniques, not even with his brother, leaving Kevin without access to that path. It was fortunate that his uncle harbored no ill feelings towards their family, and Kevin genuinely liked him. However, he had no desire to work in the mines, which was why his mother appeared troubled by broaching the topic. Maria nodded, her worry evident, but Kevin smiled reassuringly and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll go to his house today and tell him that I'll work in the mine, at least for now." As he made this declaration, his mother's smile brightened, her eyes lighting up with surprise. "Really?" she exclaimed. "Yeah," Kevin affirmed, his determination evident. He then shifted his gaze to his mother's veil, which concealed her beautiful smile from his sight, and posed a question. "Mother, why don't you stop wearing that veil? Father isn't here to stop you." His mother shook her head, her resolve unwavering. "I made a promise to your father that I would continue to wear this for the rest of my life." Ria, who had remained silent, interjected with frustration, "Mother, he's no longer here, and even when he was, why should you care about his promises? He didn't care about us and fucked around all his life." Maria's eyes flashed with anger as she reprimanded Ria, her voice firm. "Do not speak of your father like that, young lady." Ria closed her mouth, chastened by her mother's reproach. "Mom, at least consider not wearing it inside the home," Kevin pleaded, frustration evident in his voice. Once again, Maria shook her head, closing the discussion. "I don't want to talk about this anymore." Kevin exchanged a frustrated look with his sister, both of them longing for their mother to shed the veil that seemed to symbolize their father's presence and control. It was a topic that often sparked tension and left them feeling helpless, unable to understand their mother's unwavering dedication to a promise made long ago. The remainder of the breakfast passed in silence, though Ria attempted to provoke Maria into scolding Kevin for spending the night outside and drinking. However, Maria simply reminded Kevin not to repeat his actions, to which he nodded in agreement. Ria grew increasingly annoyed by their nonchalant interaction. Ria was the first to finish her meal, quickly rising from the table to prepare for her morning practice. As a college athlete in her final year, she excelled in football. Kevin found it intriguing that in a world where individuals could become superhumans overnight, there was still room for conventional sports like football. It seemed that only a fraction of the population possessed the necessary attributes to become cultivators, while the majority of people remained as ordinary humans with similar interests and hobbies, much like in his previous world. It wasn't that these individuals couldn't cultivate, rather, they lacked access to cultivation techniques. Kevin was aware that the country he currently resided in had a relatively low number of cultivators, while other nations boasted much higher percentages of cultivators within their populations. Lost in his thoughts, Kevin swiftly finished his breakfast and made his way to his uncle Stuart's house. He was eager to have a conversation about working in the mines, where his uncle was involved in the extraction of spiritite crystals, a valuable resource used by cultivators for purposes unknown to Kevin. His father had secured this job for his uncle, recognizing the benefits of working in an environment rich with cultivation resources. The exposure to such energies was believed to enhance the vitality and overall health of the human body. Previously, Kevin had harbored aspirations of managing the store, but the unfortunate reality was that there was nothing in the store to manage. There wasn't even a single pen to sell in that store. In order to kickstart the store's operations, Kevin needed capital or merchandise to sell. Thus, he had made the decision to join the mining job today, hoping to earn some much-needed cash to invest in the store and make it a viable business venture. Chapter 7 Women with a Certain Reputation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Women with a Certain Reputation. His uncle Stuart was a friendly and affable man, towering in height, and had managed to win the heart of a stunningly beautiful woman whom he had married. They had a daughter who happened to be a year older than Kevin. Despite their close bond, Kevin hadn't had much opportunity to spend time with them since his father's passing. However, he had hoped to see them today, only to discover that they were not at home, having already left for their daily routines. Kevin's aunt, Esmeralda, worked as a teacher at a primary school, while his cousin was still attending school, now in her final year. Kevin was also in school but dropped off to focus on working at the store. Don't worry, kiddo. It's not that hard of a job there. You'll get used to it with time and grow stronger, reassured Uncle Stuart, as they both sat in a well-armored bus along with numerous other workers. The workers were dressed in long, gray uniforms resembling those worn by mechanics, and their muscular frames spoke of their physically demanding work in the mines. Among the workers, Kevin's eyes were particularly drawn to the presence of some strong, muscular women. The sight was like a magnetic attraction to him. Romerio, noticing Kevin's fascination, couldn't resist teasing him about it. Romerio nudged Kevin with a mischievous grin on his face. Hey there, Kevin, seems like you've got a keen eye for the muscular ladies, huh? Maybe you should join them in their daily workout sessions. Romerio was a friend of his uncle's who also worked at mine, and Kevin had known him because he lived near their house. Kevin's cheeks turned a shade of crimson as he stammered, No, it's not like that. I was just admiring their strength, you know, as fellow workers. Romerio burst into laughter, his booming voice echoing through the bus. Oh, Kevin, don't worry. We're all just having a bit of fun here. But hey, who knows? Maybe one of those strong women will catch your eye, and you'll be doing push-ups together in no time. Hey, he's just a kid. Don't tease him, Stuart interjected, coming to Kevin's defense as he noticed the blush on his nephew's face. Kevin himself was unsure why he was blushing and feeling drawn to the muscular women. He pondered if it was simply a result of teenage hormones kicking in. In his previous life as a teenager, he had experienced similar attractions, but as he grew older, such tendencies had waned, no longer holding the same appeal. After all, he no longer needed to ogle at women's bodies when they were paying him to admire them. I was just having some harmless fun, and it seems our little Kevin wanted to join in as well, right? Romerio playfully remarked, his gaze fixed on Kevin. Stuart glanced at Kevin, observing the lingering blush on his face but chose not to comment on it. Instead, he simply stated, let him focus on his work for now. As they arrived at the mines located just outside the city, Kevin noticed the presence of heavily armored soldiers stationed there. Their purpose was to protect the workers from potential monster attacks and other dangerous creatures that lurked beyond the city walls. While Kevin had only seen monsters on the news, their terrifying appearances were etched in his memory. Filled with concern, Kevin turned to his uncle and asked, "Uncle, won't monsters attack us here? I've heard they often target the city, but there are powerful cultivators who defend against them. Why wouldn't they attack when they see such delicious humans around?" Romerio chimed in mischievously, earning a playful glare from Stuart. "Monsters do pose a threat at times, but there's no need to worry. This mine is heavily guarded by skilled cultivators who ensure our safety," Stuart reassured Kevin, handing him a pickaxe from a nearby pile. After waiting in line for about 15 minutes, they reached the checkpoint where a female miner was responsible for checking everyone's identity cards. As Kevin's turn approached, he couldn't help but notice the woman's appraising gaze scanning him from head to toe. Well, what do we have here?" "A fresh face," the woman, named Sia, remarked with a playful smile. "A fish from the clear lake, huh? How did you end up diving into this murky water?" Confused by her metaphorical question, Kevin looked to his uncle for guidance. Sensing the situation, Stuart stepped in and introduced Kevin, "This is my nephew, Sia. He's starting work here today." "I see," Sia replied, her brown skin glowing with a mischievous grin. She turned her attention back to Stuart and continued, "So, you've finally decided to introduce a family member to me. Is your wife okay with this?" Her suggestive smile mirrored those Kevin had only seen on the faces of women with a certain reputation. The exact word to describe them would be, sluts. "Hey Sia, don't you have something better to do than trying to break up happy homes and disrupt beds?" Romerio interjected, a mischievous smile dancing on his face. Sia's smile faltered for a moment as annoyance flashed across her features. She glared at Romerio and retorted, "Oh please, Romerio. You should focus on your own affairs instead of meddling in mine." Romerio chuckled and shrugged nonchalantly. "Just looking out for the well-being of others, you know. Can't have you causing trouble everywhere you go." Sia huffed in response, a mix of irritation and amusement evident in her eyes. "Well, keep your watchful eye elsewhere then. I have work to do." With that, the banter came to an end, and the group continued their journey into the mine, leaving Sia behind with a lingering sense of irritation and Romerio with a satisfied smirk. As they left Sia behind, Kevin couldn't help but ponder over his upcoming cultivation journey, which essentially meant engaging in intimate relations with women. Initially, he had contemplated earning some cash and visiting a brothel to fulfill his needs. However, after observing Sia conversing with other miners and showcasing her muscular yet provocative physique, a new idea began to form in his mind. Why pay when you can have it for free? Kevin chuckled to himself, contemplating the allure of cultivating with women in the mining community. The idea of engaging in intimate encounters without the need for financial transactions sparked a mischievous grin on his face. Spiritite stone detected 12 meters away. Chapter 8 Beginner's Luck. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Beginner's Luck. Spiritite stones detected 12 meters away. Kevin was lost in his thoughts about starting his cultivation journey when a sudden interruption came in the form of the system's voice. Startled, he noticed a glowing arrow floating in front of him, pointing downwards at the number 15M displayed on it. Curiosity piqued, Kevin glanced at his uncle and friend, wondering if they could see the glowing arrow as well. However, they seemed oblivious to its presence, indicating that he alone could perceive this phenomenon. As he continued walking, more notifications appeared before him. Spiritite stones detected 5 meters away. Spiritite stones detected 7 meters away. Spiritite stones detected 15 meters away. Spiritite stones detected 10 meters away. The continuous stream of notifications surprised Kevin, but he maintained a composed demeanor, concealing his amazement. The realization dawned on him that this newfound ability could potentially lead to great wealth, either through mining or by exploring thrift shops in search of undervalued treasures. It can't be this good. However, he quickly brushed aside any thoughts of it being an effortless journey. Kevin questioned the system, seeking clarification on the purpose of detecting these spiritite stones. Host, the function named Treasure Detector, is designed to help you identify valuable products to be sold in your store. It can detect precious items within a 15-meter range from the host. However, it can only focus on one type of item at a time and will only detect that type of item for a week. Like I said. As his suspicions were confirmed, Kevin couldn't help but smile inwardly. Although it came with limitations, the treasure detector was still a valuable tool that could potentially enhance his business ventures. With newfound determination, he followed his uncle deeper into the mine. Soon, they reached their assigned mining spot, and with words of encouragement from his uncle, they began the task of mining the crystals. Payment was based on the weight of the spiritite crystals, with 1 unit equivalent to 5 grams. Although the market price for spiritite was much higher, considering they were mining in someone else's mine, receiving 1 unit for 5 grams was still a decent deal. On average, miners would typically mine around 1 to 2 kilograms per day, earning them approximately 200 to 400 units daily. This income could be considered slightly above average within the community. With the advantage Kevin had gained from his unique ability, he was confident that he could mine around 10 kilograms per day even if he became somewhat lazy. Clang, cling. The resounding sound of metal striking stone echoed through the mine as Kevin eagerly followed the guiding arrow to the nearest target. With anticipation bubbling within him, he began to swing his axe, each strike bringing him closer to the hidden treasure buried just half a foot beneath the surface. A smile of pure delight adorned his face as he struck something harder than stone, a clear sign that he had struck gold. Squatting down, Kevin carefully used a sharp hammer to remove any remaining debris, ensuring that the crystal would remain undamaged. Within a minute, he held a small, shiny blue crystal in his hand, roughly the size of his thumb. Stuart and Romeo witnessed his successful mining of his first crystal and congratulated him with wide smiles. Congratulations, boy. You've mined your first crystal. Now, let's mine some girls after this, shall we? Romeo playfully remarked, eliciting a chuckle from Kevin. He nodded enthusiastically. R.G. Stuart smiled seeing it and continued the mining. With a taste of success and the thrill of discovery lingering in his mind, Kevin resumed mining with even greater excitement, ready to unearth more precious crystals from the depths of the mine. After 4 hours of intense mining, Kevin had accumulated a pile of blue stones reaching up to his knees, with one particularly large crystal the size of a tennis ball. In comparison, Stuart and Romeo had collectively mined half the amount Kevin had, which far exceeded their usual haul. If weighed, their combined crystals would amount to approximately 3 kilograms each, surpassing the average quota. Kevin's own pile weighed around 6 or 7 kilograms, a testament to his determination and hard work. Exhausted and out of energy, Kevin sat down, breathing heavily as he rested. Meanwhile, the two adults continued to mine, unfazed by the passing time. There was no specific time limit for their mining activities. As long as they met the minimum requirement of 1 kilogram of crystals per day, they would receive their payment without any issues. Noticing Kevin's fatigue, Stuart suggested, if you want, you can head home. Just submit your crystals at the checkpoint and collect your payment there. Kevin, too tired to argue, simply nodded in agreement. He carefully placed the mined crystals into a large cloth bag and slung it over his shoulder, preparing to make his way out of the mine. As Kevin walked towards the exit, his thoughts echoed with weariness, "This is so tiring, but at least I've earned some money now." He trudged forward, determined to reach the checkpoint and complete his task. Observing Kevin's slim figure and the weighty bag he carried, Romeo commented, "Well, he had some beginner's luck today." "We had our share too," Stuart replied with an excited smile. "Then let's go fuck some bitches, spend our hard-earned money to soften our hard dicks," Romeo said, his grin widening. Stuart's smile mirrored Romerio's enthusiasm. "That's why I sent him away, so we can enjoy ourselves. Now, let's mine a bit more to have even more fun." With renewed motivation, the two adults returned to their mining, ready to extract more crystals and extend their enjoyment. Meanwhile, Kevin continued his journey towards the exit, the weight of the bag on his shoulder a tangible reminder of his hard work and the rewards it would bring. Exhausted from his laborious mining session, Kevin didn't even spare a glance at the muscular women toiling in the mine, their sweaty bodies accentuating their curves beneath their uniforms. The fatigue had overtaken him, dampening any interest or attraction he might have felt in that moment. All he could think about was finding some respite and rest after a physically demanding day. Chapter 9 The Minor Slut, R.18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 The Minor Slut, R.18, Kevin arrived at the checkpoint and was slightly disappointed not to see Sia there. Instead, a middle-aged man greeted him, his expression tinged with jealousy as he observed Kevin's impressive haul. With a sense of curiosity, the man weighed the crystals, which totaled 6.780 kilograms, earning Kevin exactly 1356 units. It was a substantial amount for a young, impoverished teenager. Kevin, or Norman as he was known before, reflected on how this was a different kind of earning compared to his previous experiences. Pleasuring others had been his means of making money, but now he had worked hard physically to achieve this result. It was a unique and satisfying feeling for him, knowing that he had earned through his own efforts. "That's the last bus heading towards the city for the next 2 hours, the men at the checkpoint informed him. They pointed him towards a bus that had its engine running and was about to depart. "Thank you," Kevin said hastily. He quickly grabbed his metal card from the table where the men had been sitting and rushed towards the bus. The metal card served as a form of currency, similar to a debit or credit card on Earth. Kevin used the card to receive payment for his work that day. Exhausted, he sprinted towards the bus and managed to board it just in time. "Phew, made it just in time," Kevin muttered, then glared angrily at the driver, who hadn't stopped despite seeing him running towards it. Kevin glanced inside and discovered there was only one other passenger besides himself, which excited him. It was none other than Sia. "Hey, Sia," Kevin greeted with a smile as he walked over and took a seat beside her, catching her off guard from her contemplative state. Sia turned her head, her face seeming surprised as she recognized Kevin. "Oh, it's you," she said, a mixture of curiosity and amusement in her voice. "What are you doing here?" Kevin chuckled, feeling a sense of excitement building within him. "Well, it seems we're on the same bus heading back to the city. Mind if I join you?" Sia shrugged, a mischievous grin playing on her lips. "Sure, why not? I could use some company." Sia asked, "How was your first day?" as she noticed Kevin's still sweaty body. "It was good. I managed to mine about 6.5 kilos of crystal today," Kevin proudly replied, surprising Sia. "Really?" she exclaimed, looking at the numbers on her glass slab that displayed his latest transaction of 1356 units into his bank account. "You really did mine that much, huh?" she added, clearly impressed. Kevin smiled, putting the slab away. Sia questioned, "Why are you returning so early, then?" "I got tired," Kevin answered, to which Sia smiled and playfully teased, "Don't get tired like this when you get married, or someone with more stamina might steal your wife away." "Oh, don't worry about that. Even if someone tries, they can't outdo me in that field," Kevin confidently replied, unlike before when he would blush at the slightest teasing. What makes you so confident? Sia asked curiously inquired. Give me your hand, Kevin said, extending his hand to her. Sia, with a smile, gave him her hand. Kevin, with a mischievous grin, guided her hand towards his crotch, making her feel his third leg resting inside his dirty trousers. What do you think you're doing? Sia exclaimed, her tone raised in surprise. Just showing you the source of my confidence, Kevin responded, revealing the substantial bulge in his pants, indicating his gritty meat road. It's so big. Her eyes widened with shock as she caught sight of Kevin's well-endowed member. Thoughts raced through her mind as her gaze lingered on its impressive size. Noticing her curiosity, Kevin offered, you can touch it. It won't bite. Sia glanced towards the bus driver, then back at the noticeable bulge in Kevin's pants. She boldly placed her hand on it and remarked, you're right about one thing. This thing will ensure your wife won't stray, but it'll also present quite a challenge for her to handle. Kevin, feeling her hand caress his erect penis, placed his hands on her muscular thighs and squeezed them. It doesn't seem troublesome to you, he responded, a mix of excitement and confusion filling his mind. He gazed at her beautiful face, with sky-blue eyes and black hair styled in a boyish cut that added to her tomboyish charm. Her muscular body, common among minors, combined with her brown skin, heightened the appeal of her pronounced muscles in Kevin's eyes, arousing his penis. She was at least 30-year-old from looking a perfect age to be fucked senseless by his dick. But he found it unusual since he had always viewed sex as work rather than pleasure. Why am I getting excited by this, he pondered. And stopped when, without much consideration, his second brain took charge, clouding his first brain's judgments. His hand squeezed her thighs, moving towards their center. Feeling a dampness, he boldly declared, Sia, I want to fuck you. Sia showed no surprise and continued to examine his penis. I wouldn't have believed it if you had told me before, but with this size, you can definitely fuck me. But you'll have to wait until we reach the city, she said, glancing at the bus driver who was also stealing glances at them through the rearview mirror. Fortunately, the seat in front covered their activities, preventing him from seeing much. Kevin noticed the driver's gaze and silently cursed him in his mind. However, he didn't withdraw his hand from her thighs. Kevin's hands ventured beneath her shirt, sliding upwards to feel her hard abs. He remarked, then let's get you ready so we can start as soon as we reach our destination. She didn't fully comprehend what he meant by getting ready until his hand moved from her abs to lower her trunks. Fortunately, they were not buttoned but elastic, making it easy for him to pull them down and pull them back up. Chapter 10 Game of Hands, R.18, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Game of Hands, R.18, Kevin sensed a hint of arousal as his hands ventured into Sia's pants. She was taken aback by his boldness, underestimating his straightforwardness. Little did she know, Kevin possessed years of experience with women like Sia, honed through his job. Women like Sia were drawn to assertive men, with additional requirements to satisfy their carnal desires, which coincidentally aligned with Kevin's strengths. You don't seem to clean down there, he remarked, feeling the moist bush of hair around her vagina. Why does it scare you? Sia sarcastically asked. Kevin laughed at her question, finding her question amusing. He couldn't help but respond with a touch of humor, saying, I do have some fondness for treasure hunts in barren plains. But don't worry, I'm not afraid to explore the jungle when the opportunity arises. His fingers slowly explored the smoothness of her lower lips, gliding from her clitoris down to her eagerly anticipated entrance. Gently parting her outer folds, his finger delved into her inner depths. She trembled as his finger made contact with the inner skin of her vagina. Her sky-blue eyes scanned the bus driver, finding him still focused on driving. Seizing the moment, she reached down into Kevin's pants and caressed his length with her unusually soft hands. Kevin found it peculiar that a minor would possess such soft hands, but he chose not to voice his thoughts for the time being. With a seductive smile, Sia whispered in his ear, so, you're preparing me for a hard fuck, huh? Let's see if you'll even have the strength to walk when we reach the city. Her voice carried a challenging tone as she squeezed his firm member slightly and stroked it from top to bottom. In response, Kevin inserted his finger into her vagina, eliciting a gasp of surprise from Sia. It was his way of accepting her challenge and letting her know that he was ready for the game of hands. They positioned themselves at the back seats of the bus, near the window, making it difficult for anyone to see what was happening behind the seats. With some hesitation, Sia reached into Kevin's pants, pulling out his penis, and was taken aback by its size. Feeling it in her hand was a different experience altogether compared to just seeing it. It measured at least 9 inches in length and had a girth of 1 or 2 inches, more than enough to send her into a realm of pleasure. Seeing her shocked expression, Kevin playfully asked, "Do you think you can handle it?" "With pleasure," Sia replied with an eager and wide smile. Her eyes continued to fixate on his penis as she stroked it from base to tip. Kevin also directed his hands to her back, pulling her pants down to facilitate their activities. Sia raised her buttocks slightly from the seat, making it easier for Kevin to expose her hips. Taking the opportunity, Kevin lowered her pants until they reached her knees, revealing her muscular and wide thighs. The sight of her brown thighs in the sunlight aroused him further, causing his penis to harden. The sun was still high in the sky, casting its light upon the world, illuminating the scene. Kevin reveled in the view of her exposed thighs, their skin glistening in the sunlight. He indulged in the sensation of her thigh pressed against his own, encouraging her to spread her legs and expose her bushed vagina to his eager gaze. He observed the moist pubic hair covering her vaginal folds and the top of it. With his fingers, he gently spread her folds apart, revealing the reddish-pink skin inside, complementing her brown skin tone. His eyes traced the contours of her vaginal opening, and with expertise, his index finger penetrated her while his thumb remained on her clitoris. Kevin couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his ability to locate a woman's clitoris, recognizing that it was a skill not commonly possessed by most men. "You're quite skilled," Sia remarked, her breathing heavy with arousal. Kevin placed his second hand on her thigh, continuing to caress its inner part, and responded, "Didn't I say I'm a skilled treasure hunter? I can find treasure even in the sea, and this is just a jungle." As his finger touched the sensitive bumps inside her vagina, her body tensed and heated up. Sia's body grew hotter with every touch, but she didn't stop stroking Kevin's penis. Seeing it grow redder and harder, she coated the palm of her hand in her vaginal fluid and applied it to his penis, enhancing the sensation of her sensual handjob. Kevin grinned at her response and inserted another finger into her vagina, eliciting a silent moan from her. "Why is it taking so long to orgasm?" Kevin wondered, surprised that his young body hadn't reached climax yet. He expected him to succumb to pleasure much earlier. However, this frail body proved to have remarkable stamina, remaining rock hard and far from release. However, the same couldn't be said for Sia. Her breathing grew heavier, and she felt every touch of Kevin's finger inside her vagina. Sensing her heightened arousal, Kevin teasingly continued his actions. He observed her legs shaking from the sensations. "Look at you. You said I wouldn't have the strength to walk when we reached the city, and your legs are already starting to shake, and we haven't even crossed half the distance." Sia remained silent, focusing on stroking his penis with increased speed and continuing to stimulate herself with his penis. As Kevin suggested, "Why don't you use your saliva?" Sia hesitated, concerned that the bus driver might catch them. However, unable to resist the sight of his rock-hard penis, she lowered her head and let her warm saliva flow from her dark red lips directly onto the head of his penis. With that done, she used her hand, which was previously stroking his penis, to wipe away the remaining saliva from her lips. In a bold and explicit act, she licked the sticky fluids from her vagina off her hand. This vulgar display heightened Kevin's arousal, causing his mind to race and his penis to throb in Sia's hands. He whispered to himself, a mix of surprise and excitement in his voice, "I didn't know I liked vulgar women." Sia appeared to have heard his remark and feigned anger, asking, "Are you saying I am a vulgar woman?" Kevin responded without being affected by her false anger, asking in return, "Aren't you?" To which she just smiled and continued to stroke his penis.